I think just in a way into like thinking into these articles that we read, it's like there's nothing necessarily moral or immoral about these signifiers. Like protests as such are not like automatically moral phenomenon, because interestingly, one of the articles we read today, let me just get the name of it correct. Oh yeah, The Will Not to Know by Zizek came out this week. And he talks about a protest in Berlin. It's actually, interestingly, me and Will came across a few weeks ago. Yeah. We were just crossing the street and we walked through this protest and we're like, is this a Black Lives Matter protest? No, it's not, because everyone looks fucking weird and they're all white. and
it was a very strange smattering of types of people. You had like kind of intimidating looking possible neo-Nazi types mixed in with the kind of new agey dreadlocks type. And it was like, what is the unifying cause here?
And then like no sooner did we cross the street than we realized like, oh, this is like a far right anti-COVID march protest. But then like that just brings me to my point where it's like, if you were like, oh, I'm always in favor of all protests because protests are good. And then like, but then we get this shit, and another time I was in Toronto, I came across a protest, and I thought it was a Black Lives Matter protest, and I started looking around, and it was like, again, a weird, really bizarre collection of people with like anti-mask, anti-lockdown signs. So it's just
it's an unfortunate sort of I want to call it like a symbolic circumstance that it seems even in this conversation that the equation is Black Lives Matter protesting is black, but it's sort of automatically assumed that it's a Black Lives Matter protest because of its sort of the domination of, like, I think this, at least the media domination has turned the Black Lives Matter movement into simply the protests that we see, but it's obviously it's beyond the protests that are in the street, and just as much as protesting is beyond Black Lives Matter, it's actually an inalienable right. You know, we should be able, we should have our right to protest, and the thing is, just about anyone can protest, you know. But what we're seeing is the disparity is how these protesters are treated, right? We remember the white people that stormed the Michigan, you know, like what was it? Was some sort of building of parliament with machine guns, and they're like pushing politicians around and yelling at them, and like they get to sort of leave quietly, or not so quietly, but they get to leave without any fucking force. And we're watching for months now violence between Black Lives Matter protesters and police. But I actually think it does apply to the two articles we read, because the will not to know. So this is the article by Zizek from August 24th. The will not to know, and what he talks about here is the ontological catastrophe that's going on with COVID, and so just to tie in what we started this off with is that, like, we're actually talking about the everyday experience, right? The sort of the necessary level of disavowal that our society, and I don't mean capital S society, but I mean like most people's everyday experience requires. It's a requisite that you sort of either forget or you will not to know, or you disavow things that you know are going on. You know, for a long time now, it's been the ecological crisis. There's some obviously drastic similarities between the ecological crisis and COVID, but there are things that threaten us universally as people on planet Earth, you know, but there is a will not to know built in and baked in to the symbolic order, and the symbolic order, I will argue, has been changed by the eruption of COVID. We will do everything to not know that it's changed, you know?
I think that's a really good point. And maybe as we are so prone to not doing, maybe we can maybe we can correct for that and say like, okay, hello, this is Zizek and so on, and we'll try and do this one again. Hi, I'm Peter, and I'm joined by.
Hey, I'm Jake.
Hey, it's Will. Nice to be talking
Nice to
to you
talk
guys.
to you.
Yeah, welcome back to Zizek and so on.
Yeah, we decided to not be we decided to approach the COVID situation, and I guess we're a bit late, but it's funny that it seems late.
The COVID crisis sweeps the world. Currently in month 8 of the crisis, and people I'm sure are still wondering, when are they going to talk about that?
Yeah, well, there's that, but it's also funny how it seems late to talk about, right? Like it's old news, right? We already know what's happening, and we decided to talk about mainly the article by Zizek that we've referred to a number of times, the Will Not to Know, and also a bit of supplementary support by Matthew Flisfeder, social distancing and its discontents. It came out in May, but I think it still has a lot of kind of vital framing that we can approach.
You know, just preliminarily speaking, I have this theory going with my friend, or not theory, but like a shared experience between her and me, that like anything from pre-COVID, like any sort of like especially nonfiction things like podcasts or articles from like February 2020, they've become unreadable. And this is what I mean, like on a felt experiential level, the symbolic order has been shifted, okay? It's actually been rejigged, changed, and maybe even blown the fuck up. So much so that like when you read stuff before COVID, it seems like incredibly naive, right?
Holy
like,
shit, Bernie Sanders is gonna win this.
yeah, that too.
It's like thinking about air travel like in November of 2001 compared to August.
Exactly, because there's an event.
What's an event?
You know, a Bedouin an event, right? There's this rupture of the real that I think like there's a before and after distinctly. And so Matt's article, interestingly, it being in May, it's theoretical enough that it still applies to the situation in August heading into September, but my sense of what's dated is become so much more narrow. Like it's so contracted. Anyway, but yeah, so we have an article.
But I think it's interesting. I think it like kind of returns as an interesting idea, not in the refusal to accept the oncoming crisis, but to the refusal to accept the ongoing crisis.
Exactly.
Right. The potential that it still lurks as a phenomenon. Yeah.
Oh man, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about like where I'm going in the next couple of months because I'm kind of marooned here, and I was thinking like, is there going to be a resurgence in November? Like, is that possible? It doesn't seem likely. That doesn't seem very likely. And then I realized like, wait a second, what context have I been living in? This is a completely exceptional situation. It would have been impossible to think of. I mean, it was impossible to think of beforehand. And here I am acting as if the same normal still holds, right?
Peter, that's a really good point, because it's the two like what I will say the difference between the early articles and the late articles is that maybe the difference between the article from Matt and the article from Slavoj is that there's this feeling that people are not yet ready to accept the new real, so to speak. And now there's 8 months in, it's like, well, as I've said earlier on the podcast, like you can't actually plead ignorance any longer. You simply can't, right? Millions of people have died. We've got like tens of millions of people infected. It's a fucking reality, and it's changed a lot of things. So now the move is less like, oh, we just don't know. We were caught off guard. This is unprecedented. perhaps the normal hasn't been changed. Remember early on, it was like, this thing might be gone in April. The warm weather might take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, drink bleach. But like, now it's, now we know. And in fact, now we know that we don't know. And what's so amazing is over and over and over again from like top epidemiologists, we're hearing that we simply don't know. We really don't know what's going on.
Well, I mean, yeah, and we like the information from the top epidemiologists as well has changed so drastically so as to appear fucking like insanely contradictory as the information we heard from the very beginning. For example, with the masks. Yeah. But
I just want to say, just briefly, for the sake of accuracy, we're looking at 820,000 deaths. So it's still a lot, but it's not millions.
That's in the that's yeah. What are you talking about? 820,000 deaths?
Yeah, but 24 million cases. Anyway, just wanted to be accurate there.
Jake, you have been owned with facts and logic.
Yeah.
No, very good.
I just Ben Shapiro'd you.
I just got fact checked on my own goddamn podcast. Yeah. Well, tune into Jacob and so on for the real fucking facts, okay?
But just to return to Matthew's piece, so the specific kind of tableau he's talking about is the spring breakers. They all wanted to go out, and they did, and we saw these amazing videos of like people who have COVID or have just gotten over it or about to get it, all out together. So just enacting like total death drive, but so he's kind of framing it in a within the context of civilization and its discontents, the Freud book, and the concept. But there's a part that I found very interesting, and I think it links to what we were saying earlier, where he's talking about the youthful spring breakers are not they're not cutting against the grain. They're just enacting the like contemporary neoliberal injunction to enjoy, right? They're the ultimate. He calls them the ultimate jouisseurs. But then he makes an interesting statement that there's nothing inherently emancipatory about a politics of transgression, right? Like they're transgressing, yeah. Right? But transgression as such is not necessarily an emancipatory project, just as say protests are, or these other kind of signifiers that were given that we kind of assume or are told or believe are kind of automatically moral emancipatory signifiers.
Yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, I found that to be like. I think the theoretical nugget in that, because just to backtrack, Civilization and its Discontents on the Reader's Digest version is that Freud thinks that there's a certain amount of repression, right, of instinctual repression that is required for the smooth running of society, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have to add a question mark on that because I read it when I was like 18 and
discontent.
I don't know if I don't think that it actually means that I read it. There's been a lot of things that have happened since then,
You're basically a plant when you're 18.
Yeah.
Or in contemporary parlance, you're what's called a super spreader.
I've started to ironically refer to children as carriers. No.
Well, we're
Can I get an amen on that?
Yeah, we're gonna find out. I think the jury's still out on that.
On children.
on children. But doesn't Matt, unless didn't I get the sense that Matt was on some level turning that logic on its head?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't quite know how to respond to that, Jake, but I'm just looking at the Zizek article, and this quote leaps out at me. I'm just going to read it here. It may appear that at a time like ours, when the virus threatens us all, the predominant stance would have been that of the will to know, the will to understand fully the workings of the virus in order to control successfully and to stop its spread. However, what we witness more and more is a version of the will not to know too much about it, insofar as this knowledge could limit our everyday way of life. So like maybe looking at it as an expression of what he's saying here as the will to not know too much about it, to kind of, as we were saying before, carry on as if we're still under the, pre-COVID normalcy of, yes, a a neoliberal order that compels us to enjoy in certain ways and to perhaps repress certain truths in certain ways. But what the COVID situation is doing is rendering these things in a completely new light, that gathering to enjoy in such a way can't mean the same thing it did before, because it extends to, it has implications that extend out to the political order, the economic order, the social order.
I think I know what you mean. Like it takes the curtailing of our enjoyment in a certain sense, just as it takes limiting of our instinctual like perception of our own freedom. If I can put it that way, maybe in our maybe perhaps improperly, but I think expanding the Freudian notion of like the individual's relationship to the society, kind of inverting that, saying that like due to the kind of necessity of that COVID kind of bears on us, we need to accept those limitations. If that makes any sense to you guys.
Well, yeah, and how about the instinct for fucking fear, like the instinct of fear, of threat? I mean, like it's so obvious that this virus is an ontological threat. It's a threat to our very being. But the symbolic, our access to reality, the way that it's structured, has been changed by this ontological threat. But we can't secede that. We don't want to secede that, and that's why, Will, I wrote down the same quote. It's like you'd think that it would appear that we would want to know more about this and how it's changed things. But the will to not know is almost this like anti-instinct. Like, let's not be scared of the ontological threat, and let's assume the structure of reality and our access to it as before, because ultimately, it is about enjoyment. Will, it is about enjoyment, and
given the as you were saying earlier, and where Zizek ends up is that the kind of symbolic order that was prevalent before COVID has changed, and we don't know in what ways, but we're not even cognizant of that, the fact that it's even changed. But a changing of that order, of a kind of new big other, compels us to enjoy in different ways.
We must.
Yeah.
But we also don't want to.
But there's an interesting part where it's like, and this is to Zizek's article. He's describing the levels of this catastrophe, and of course the virus like is the kind of over-determining factor, but the virus is not simply just a virus. It's bringing out all of the other latent or not so latent issues that are just like the complete, like the horizon of the catastrophe of that is the present society right now, right? And so like it's not one thing that came to mind when I was reading it was Kamala Harris the other night when she's accepting the nomination. She says, there's no vaccine for racism, and it's a very I guess useful kind of liberal phrase to put it that way. Just as like when Hillary was like, if you do away with the big banks, it won't do anything about racism. But then what came to my mind was there's almost not even a vaccine for this virus, in that the virus, like even if the virus goes away, what it's already changed in terms of like the health crisis, evictions, unemployment, none of those will go away if there's a vaccine.
Well, the interesting thing about, like, so going back to Freud here a little bit and Zizek's point is that there's in a dream, the analyst is presented with the manifest content, which is the content of the dream, the happenings. Then there's the latent content, what they might mean in context of the dreamer. And then there's why everything would take the dream form in the first place, which is the unconscious desire, right? Which is the problem of unconscious desire versus conscious desire. So we have the two forms of things that can be interpreted and known to us, which are the manifest and the latent content. And then there's this sort of the real of the dream, which is why it's a dream in the first place. Which is ultimately, I think, the sort of the tripartite that we're forced to look at right now, which is we can analyze why certain latent issues are coming to light under the lens of COVID, how capitalism has failed, how systemic racism has been here all along, and now we're suddenly awoken to its realities. But then there's the question of enjoyment, which none of us actually want to ask insofar as it becomes actionable, is like, well, why do the things, both manifest and latent, why do they take this form in the first place, right? There's a sort of elemental, like the COVID on one level is the analyst, or like, and we are the analysand, or COVID being a function of the real is like, why do any of these things take the form that they do? So it's not simply just about the classical critique of ideology that provides us with, like, I think, substantial answers to why things work in the way they, why certain things function the way they do in whatever arbitrary symbolic order. But why the fucking symbolic order that we have in the first place? So, like, this is why I think that there's something about COVID and enjoyment, and the real that has to do with this will to not know. Is like, on some level, society might be approaching a point where society itself it philosophizes, where it has to ask, what's the fucking point? Where we don't really understand why we do any of the things we do, why any of the structures that are in place, and why any of the master signifiers are there. There is no subject supposed to know, and society will, maybe through COVID, get to this absolute point of philosophy where they have to, ask the question.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if you ask these, reactionary protesters why they're doing it, you're gonna get an answer that you're gonna get an unanswer, right? But it probably won't include those kind of deeper latent issues. You're gonna get the kind of veneer of the problem as it expresses itself in its multifaceted kind of offshoot form, but without actually hitting the kind of hard kernel, like, what is it, the actual issue, the ontological issue.
Yeah.
And it seems like one of the points that Zizek is making in this article is that, I mean, that's the demand that COVID is placing on us, to think through the kind of ontological implications of the COVID crisis, and that it has changed our very concept of, or our very experience of reality itself.
Exactly. And so slap a mask on your server and pretend like nothing's nothing's wrong. But I think
go into the restaurant and take the mask off once you sit down.
Right. But these are all little concessions in the pursuit of the will not to know, because ultimately we think that this will, like any other catastrophe that threatens us, that there will just be a certain amount of time that will pass, and then normal will reemerge. And normal for me is just about a way of enjoying. And we don't necessarily need to use enjoyment in the literal sense, but I mean, like, how we understand surplus, jouissance, like how we understand all this, how enjoyment is organized in society, is essentially 2019. Let's just call it that. And most of us, those who aren't being pushed, like what COVID is doing for a lot of people is just delaying and suspending in between 2019 and the return to 2019.
Joe Biden,
right?
Yeah.
And we don't know how long that suspension is going to be, but there's this little delay, a glitch. Let's call it a glitch in the symbolic order, and there are things that you can do to substitute, right? To put a mask on, have your server wear a mask, order more food. Order more takeout. You don't travel for 2 years. You'll buy a nice struck tube desk and work from home. There are like little concessions that you can do to substitute what has ultimately been a rupture in your symbolic order, but it will only last. It will be sutured up for a certain arbitrary amount of time in your mind before you can get back to your regular neoliberal enjoyment and the dreams that come along with them. But I think the argument here is that this rupture is much larger and more determinate and more original than the sutures that we're applying to them, right? Is like, what? Okay, so we're all wearing masks, and that has some latent, like, why do we wear masks? Most of us know why, but like, what's happening beneath the mask wearing? Why are we all wearing masks now? It's like the symbolism is because it's like what I'll call the manifest content and the latent content is quite obvious to us. But
it's like on one level, it's like, oh, so you don't pass germs,
right?
You don't spread the disease,
right? But what lurks behind the mask, which is to say, like, it's the same thing as the ecological crisis as we were talking about in last episode. It's like, buy your green toilet paper, get a fucking toilet that somehow saves water, and like ignore the impending doom. Right. And I think that the ecological one on some level is like maybe the time frame is a little bit less immediate than COVID. Sure. But for some people also, the symbolic order has not been this way anyway for a long time. People who are migrating because of COVID, people who are migrating because of climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the migrants yet to come due to COVID.
Yeah. Well, it's just the dominant ideology which is capital, is sort of given an opportunity to look at the real, to encounter the real, and the will to not know is fucking strong,
But what you were saying earlier, Jake, about, I forget how you put it, the sort of attempts, you use the word glitch.
I use glitch,
the attempts to sort of suture over it, or resuture over it with the old symbolic order. It reminded me of the glitch in the Matrix where Neo sees the black cat twice.
Whoa. That was the reference, yeah.
Right. And what's happening there is that it's a kind of sudden awareness of the sort of workings of the Matrix, that the Matrix is at the same time working and not working. So like in this context, the COVID can be seen as a glitch, as kind of simultaneously working, and the working and not working of the constitutive symbolic order. That in the glitch itself of COVID, you see suddenly that the order is working in this way, and then after the fact, you're forced with the situation of either suturing over it, pretending as if it was a mere glitch, or of seeing the sense in which the glitch actually spoke something or exemplified something about the order itself, or the functioning of the order itself.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, it's like the real only actually sort of shows itself in the rupture of the symbolic, but it's not itself a thing that we can locate and grasp.
It's still within the symbolic.
Yeah, and the rupture itself actually shows the efficacy of the symbolic. So for me, there was this great image, for us, for those listening, the premier of Ontario is this guy named Doug Ford, and he was at when Ontario was moving into stage 3, which essentially means that the economy is open again. He's standing 6 feet apart from 4 of the people that he's making the announcement with, and they're all wearing masks. And it's like, the message is, you're safe, we're going back to work, but they're all wearing masks and 6 feet apart from one another. And you're like, okay, this is the black cat, right? I see the mask. Who else sees the fucking mask? You're telling me that I'm safe through the mask, 6 feet apart from the people around you. This is not safe to me. And ultimately, our understanding of safe in the symbolic order of yesteryear, 2019 and up to February 2020, is no mask, we're all together, we talk freely, we talk loudly, we talk wet, moist fucking words. Moistly, yeah? So what I'm saying is like the rupture of the real is actually on some level worn on every mask. And you're like, but ultimately the symbolic order has incorporated COVID in ways where it's like, yeah, your server's still going to bring you your hot wings and your beer, but she'll be wearing a mask. They'll be wearing a mask. Forgive me.
It's like when the Simpsons are going to Itty and Scratchy Land, and the pilot is saying, "Well, welcome to Itty and Scratchy Land, where nothing can possibly go wrong." Possibly. That's the first thing that's ever gone wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You see my point?
Yeah, well, you said it's worn on every mask, but it's also worn on every face without a mask, right? Like, because every face now is a face without a mask. Yeah. You see, there's still the mask even when it's not there, because it's still some form of statement, when someone's not wearing
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
And this is why, like, this is ontic, right? This is the ontic part of ontological, is like, whether you like it or not, something's happened. We see somebody without a mask on and something happens, right? We actually interpret it. We feel that on a felt level, on an experiential level. And so when this is the case, when the virus is global, because this is the point of Zizek's article, which was the point of Pandemic, the book that came out, what was that, in April?
Yeah,
he put it out in May?
Shot that one right out in April. Like a matter
Just
of weeks.
Fired out like a t-shirt cannon, a t-shirt gun to all the Zizek readers ready and willing to read it. Like
with
myself.
Naked torsos ready for his
ready for the t-shirt gun of his intervention. But fuck, what was I gonna say? What were we talking about? Oh, that something had happened. What was I saying? What the fuck was I just saying? Pandemic. What he's say? Oh, what he's saying in this article, rather, and this is why it goes back to the book, is that only a global approach will work, is what he says.
Yeah.
Yes. Crucial point.
Crucial point. We can't miss it. And it seems that nationalist and ideological isolation doesn't address what is clear to some of us as the universality of the issue of COVID, right? And by extension, I always read the ecological catastrophe as well, because I group them in the same thing, which is like, there's not a single person to whom this doesn't affect. And for COVID, I won't include the indigenous tribes in Papua New Guinea, but global warming does affect everyone, climate change or whatever, the ecological catastrophe at hand. And what we're seeing with COVID is that there's like incredible national organization, right? We're seeing how each country responds to the thing. We're seeing, by the way, Russia just named their vaccine that did not go to stage 3 trials, Sputnik.
That's awesome.
So the vaccine itself is becoming its own Cold War. China is developing its own vaccine. By the way, China. I read a.
Well, I think they actually shot the first vaccinated Russian into space. Oddly enough,
but it was a dog. Yeah, it was a dog. But no, and like the thing is, like what do they not think? Do they think we're so fucking dumb that we didn't already understand the vaccine race to be a Cold War? They actually went so far as to name it Sputnik.
I kind of like that they're just letting it rip one more time. Like vintage Cold War, just dusting off the old Cold War T-shirts and firing them right out the cannon.
They're fucking pranking. It's a prank, man. But my point is that we're actually going to see, and so China, for example, did you guys see that pool party in Wuhan with it was tens of thousands of people at the pool party? Yeah. So, the once epicenter of the virus they've gone down to 0 community transmitted cases. And I read an article about China's response, and it's a point of pride.
I think having a party that's effectively a wet market is a bit too on the nose.
Yeah,
we don't have to keep that.
Yeah. But anyway, my point is that what happens when a caseload goes down to next to nothing is that manufacturing starts over again, the economy starts to get back to a relative normal, and when you have countries who are not where you're at, your success in responding to COVID becomes an economic advantage, and you can start to develop vaccines faster. Anyway, and children can go back to learning, and the list goes on. But we're seeing that out of COVID is arising yet again a capitalist competition.
Yeah, so I think just to add on to that, and this is what Zizek brings up in the article, is that what limits the global response is it's neoliberalism, capitalism, but it's the way that the government of each country, their relationship to the market and to business, because in the neoliberal era, the government's basically hands off, except they facilitate the smooth functioning of the market, which in a way means they're ultimately responsible for it. So when those markets take a hit due to COVID, they can actually sue the government and like we're seeing instances of that, and that's basically the perfect kind of microcosm of what kind of happens anyway. Like
yeah. I mean, I
not
couldn't
only
believe
third world,
that.
but yeah, all around.
I couldn't believe when I read that.
Yeah, we're seeing, what is it? What was it? Uber is suing. Uber is suing the government of a state or a country for loss of profits, and perhaps Airbnb as well.
Yeah, which is ultimately filters down into whether or not the individual is working. And I do think that the non-working rabble and the people who don't have the option to work will be supplemented also by people who choose not to work, and that there are programs, at least in Canada, which are done in like basically 6-month installments, which is like, we're going to make it easier. We're going to get money into people's hands so they can pay their landlords. Okay, 6 months goes by. Now it's like, we're going to make it easier for people to we're going to open up the economy so that most of you have to work. And then we're going to make it easier for people to apply for employment insurance. 6 months from now, what's going to happen? 6 months after that, what's going to happen? And
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just think that like, not all of us can be skip the dishes drivers, and Uber Eats drivers. Like, there is going to be a certain point 18 months from now or 2 years from now when the economy will not be of the same reality as 2019. And you're going to have a lot of people on your hands who can't work, and so who can't afford to live. And it's not as if living costs are getting any less. In fact, the prices of goods are rising as we speak due to the ecological nexus with COVID, right? We're talking about famine, drought, and fucking locusts here. Like, it's biblical proportions here.
This brings us back to Zizek's reasoning in reference to Badiou, but the communist hypothesis is like, it's like at the core of the issue, it's a matter of who's included and excluded, right? And there's a greater and greater amount of people who are just simply going to be excluded.
Right. And I wonder if there is such a thing. Like, I know that this is a limp version of communism, the people who hope for the sort of perfect event, right? The perfect timing for communism. But like, what happens when that the people who are excluded becomes an increase? I mean, it's already a majority. But when it gets to a majority where something just happens, where the resources are obviously there and so they're taken. Because I've been familiar now with that meme where it's like Jeff Bezos actually has enough money to like end world hunger for like 4 years or some shit like that. And you're like, what? That's crazy. But like, what happens when we need to take it from him? Or like when we stop using when we just connote, like, we can't use Amazon anymore. Or we can't use Facebook anymore. Or we can't.
Yeah, well, I mean, what happens when we need to take it from him? But it's gonna be really a shame when we guillotine him and you can't hold his head up with one hand because he has no hair.
Yeah. You'll have to hold him by his eyelids.
Yeah, well, and the question of what comes after, I mean, it's kind of impossible to answer at this moment. But I think that Peter, you referenced earlier Giorgio Agamben, the Italian philosophers. He wrote a piece in late February that honestly
did not age well.
It comes off as pretty hysterical. However,
aged terribly.
There are certain points that he was making that I think are valid, and I came across a short interview he did sort of clarifying certain points, and the question of what comes afterwards was answered pretty interestingly by him to the interviewer. He said, "What worries me is not only the present, but what will come after. Just as wars have bequeathed to peace a series of nefarious technologies, in the same way it is very likely that governments, after the end of the health emergency, will seek to continue the experiments that they have not yet managed to carry out, that universities and schools close and only give online lessons, that we stop gathering and talking for political or cultural reasons and only exchange digital messages, that as far as possible machines replace all contact, all contagion between human beings."
That's a good point. I think it's already happened in terms of like, I mean, after the initial couple months, the first time seeing my friends was like weird. Like, we didn't really know what to talk about, and like that was only after 2 months, and so like I think that makes that the kind of deep social implications of suspicion of everyone around you in a certain sense, are gonna be deeply impactful.
And just this idea of, I mean, so far the impact on everything from elementary schools to universities has been, basically catastrophic, I think, for education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The idea is that universities are going to close down, and schools as well, but universities, I guess, has more to do with my present experience, being selfish. But it's a really sad idea to think about the fact that like we're all going to be completely atomized, even though it was the trend. But this is like acceleration.
One, and the way that he brings in this term, it's like instead of contact, we have first social distancing, and then it's replaced with this concept of contagion, right?
Yeah. Contagion.
The very idea of mixing with other human beings, which forms, which is the basic, next.
Or being with.
Situation.
Yeah,
being with, exactly.
Yeah.
Is replaced with this, like, what's the word for being scared that you're going to catch diseases?
Hypochondriac.
Sterility, this kind of hypochondriac relationship with the world.
Copophagic.
No, but for sure, right? Is because that what's implied in our very relation is a certain metric of contagion, be that of a virus, but also of like a sharing of experience, and that obviously for Agamben is something biological, right? But it's cultural and it's symbolic and it's sociological. I mean, this is where enjoyment comes in, because I think like as the world becomes more and more atomized, there's going to be the pressure will be about guaranteeing one's personal security, which ultimately really is the logic of capitalism, which is guarantee your own security, and then from that point you can then start to care about other people's security. But what
exactly, because a government is saying like look what we gave up, so immediately, and I mean. And of course, it was for, we all feel like it was for a reason, right? And yet, look at the ease with which it happened. It was this.
Right.
This is a deep question, right? Like I think this is like par excellence a philosophical question, right? Because like there's a certain sense in which we are committed to providing a certain answer based on the ideological position that we hold, right? Like the right will say like, oh, any limitation is just a deep affront to my personal freedom, and the left, whatever that means, but people on the left will say, we need to accept that this is the scientific reality, and we need to accept that there's something greater going on here than merely what we want to do, and that there is a deeply ethical and truly like social act to limit one's own freedom in a certain sense. But
yes.
Like this is the philosophical question here is like if we're from the left-wing perspective, considering like not only the social implications but the actual like the personal relationship you have to like your life.
Yes.
This is in some sense a kind of internal tension within like the left position itself, right? Because like it doesn't, but one can be prone to believe that an individual experience just doesn't matter. But like that's not what a truly nuanced perspective is. But that like if you're in the kind of realm of the like just holding the party line on like Twitter or social media or whatever, often is reduced to just kind of holding these positions without teasing out these like really complicated, deep philosophical questions that aren't answerable by just the mere political position that you hold.
Well, I also think to supplement to that is to factor in the actual material sacrifices one would have to make in order to align their philosophical ideals and political ideals with their felt experience. And I don't mean to be so like sort of wishy-washy, abstract, sort of modern in my language, but like, and I mean modern as a pejorative, but like felt experience here is like the left on some level can operate in the way that it has without having to make some significant fucking leaps, right? It's like we wanted Bernie, we get Biden. And I think like the analogy there is that the left on some level, I know personally, myself and people included who can not necessarily adhere to what they believe, but believe it anyway, right? Is sort of like, but at what point are we also employing the will not to know, right? It's like I think that the left can be.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what I mean is that we know a lot of people, and I think we could even include ourselves, that there's certain ways in which we personally enjoy, in the way in which enjoyment and what we consider to be our own and what we're entitled to, what I'll claim here is our future. Our very ideas of our future and our hopes for our future and the image of our future is something that we probably we're not yet willing to sacrifice. And the will,
but at the same time, we've experienced not complete, but near complete foreclosure of the concept of the future as we once thought of it, right?
And a little bit though, it's as like thumb your fuck. So what?
Yeah,
and then the question is
at the same time.
But that's the so what. But there's also at the same time, it's okay. Think about yourself, think about like each person you know, and then and then you magnify it. But like on what level, like that's the tension, right? Like the so what, yeah, we gotta fucking take it. We gotta accept that this is a limitation. But like there is something to be said, and this is the difficulty here, of the ease in which we can give that up. Like, because can we really give that up?
Yeah, and I just want to read one more excerpt from that Agamben interview. He says, "What happens to human relations in a country that accustoms itself to living in such conditions? And what is a society that no longer believes in anything other than survival? It is a truly sad spectacle to see an entire society confronted with an otherwise uncertain danger liquidate all of its ethical and political values en bloc. When all this is over, I know I will no longer be able to return to the normal state." And that idea, because I think we're kind of getting towards it, we're faced on the one hand with like, I think we haven't mentioned yet, but I think, a massive mental health or mental life shift or crisis or catastrophe that is hard to measure because we all feel it, in our own singular way. But as he's saying here, this kind of collective liquidation of all these kind of ethical, political values, and I think, Jake, as you're saying, enjoyment, liquidating all this on block, like what does that? I mean, this is the question: what happens?
Yeah, what are we besides those things, right? When we're the surviving.
Yeah. Is it just about survival? Yeah.
But exactly. But the other thing is to ask if we are nothing beyond those things, we need to understand where those things come from and why they're articulated in the certain ways that they are, and why we sort of so easily identify with them. Like when I've sort of compromised what I considered to be my future, I'm like, well, why was that my future? Because to be honest, I haven't actually had to compromise very much. I didn't really have a very clear idea of where I was going and what I was doing. So it's all what ultimately this is just about a reenacting that question again, which is like, what are you doing with your life? But the thing is, it's like, so I think these points can exist in they can both be true. And both might be worse. So,
definitely.
This is my favorite reference.
Great way of putting it. Yeah.
It's like, of course, I think the point is true that we are actually not more than the things that we have had to so quickly and with alacrity sacrificed. We are actually not necessarily more than our enjoyment.
We can't not enjoy.
Point. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We are not, we are actually ideological subjects. We are ideological subjects fucking through and through. But why do we enjoy what we enjoy? And so the thing is, it's like, most of our enjoyment has not actually had to consider how interconnected we are. And so the brilliance of COVID and interconnectedness, I want to emphasize that back to this sort of element of contagion that Agamen's talking about. It's like our enjoyment has been fucking subverted. I mean, the table has been flipped. And now but we realize is that our personal enjoyment, our own own most potential, our idealized futures, involve a certain level of contagion, involve a certain level of interconnectedness, right? Which COVID has eliminated. And now we're just trying to, with this suturing, sort of assume the same coordinates of enjoyment despite the table being flipped, despite there being like a categorical and fundamental shift, which affects us on this ontological level.
And one more to follow that excellent point up, Jake.
Yeah, keep hitting us, because this is like, maybe it's aged not so.
Well, this is actually, it's from the very end of the Zizek article, but I think it's getting exactly at what we're trying to say here. He says, this is the choice we have to make. Will we succumb to this temptation of the will to ignorance? Or are we ready to think the COVID pandemic not only as a biochemical health issue, but as something that is rooted in the complex totality of our humanity's place in nature and of our social and ideological relations? Such a decision may include the realization that we will have to behave unnaturally and construct a new normality. And
yeah, which by the way, I mean, it rings of, because like, every broadcaster from here to Timbuktu since March 15th has been saying the new normal. We're gonna have to embrace the new normal. But Zizek means something, I think, just like obviously nuanced here, is that when we said new normal previously, or when we hear Rachel Maddow say fucking new normal, it's about a sort of an adjustment. It's about smiling with a mask on. It's about getting beer and hot wings with a mask on. But new normal for Zizek means, I think, a complete reorganization of enjoyment. And like, we're watching globally, nationally, individually, people respond with I think, old ways and old within an old system or coordinates of enjoyment.
Yeah, it's like the answer is like, Joe Biden, but just slap a mask on him, and that's it. That's the answer right there. Okay, we got. I don't want to change anything. I'm not going to. Everything was better before, but I'm going to wear a mask.
Yeah. It's actually kind of fucking amazing. Okay, the new conservative leader in Canada, his new tagline is "Take Back Canada," which is a half-baked, limp-dicked version of "Make America Great Again." and what's amazing,
as everything in Canada is.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, it's practically our tradition. But ultimately, like, I'm like, oh my God, "Make America Great Again" has become sort of like the world's response to COVID. Like, just kind of extending and protracting the logic outside of Trump and America. It's like, we just want to go back. That's
it's like Weekend at Bernie's. It's like, pretend this corpse is still alive.
Yeah, exactly. And like animate it. And
and if only we could have actually had the Weekend with Bernie, but just but though I think a comparable, I was going to bring this up earlier, but I think a comparable situation, I mean, the most recent comparable situation that I can think of is 9/11, which is obviously very different, but in many of the kind of just bare facts of the matter. However, it was a complete rupturing of the previous symbolic world order, and the enacting of an entirely new one. And we're still living within the aftermath of 9/11, or obviously it's changed more since COVID, but
always will.
But on all levels, 9/11 completely reshaped the world, and there was never any going back to before that, to the 90s. No matter how many Friends episodes you watch, you're never going to get beyond 9/11 and that rupture. And this is just I think the closest thing, at least in my lifetime, that I can remember that is comparable to the situation.
Yeah, in the sense of what, like the point that Agamben was making before, what we accepted in the form of like the Patriot Act and the way that America functions as the world's policeman, and particularly in the Middle East, and the way that you go through an airport, and the way that you just even think about.
You're already taking your shoes off, and you're
yeah, it's like these things you don't even. I mean, not everyone, but one doesn't necessarily interrogate these things as being a matter of, or the result of, of what happened through 9/11, and yet we now live in that world. And I guess this is what we're trying to get at here, is like we're clearly passing through something here, and it's not like that's news to anyone, but in the way that we try to normalize everything, it's just kind of a function of being alive. It's a necessity even, but the very coordinates we have, or the very tools that we have to normalize an event, just can't apply to this one. They're not big enough. They're outclassed or something. It's like,
totally.
It's like still riding a bicycle in World War II.
Well, no, I mean those signifiers have been emptied of their meaning. Like, which is why, when I just can't sit on a patio. I won't do it. I just can't do it. And I see people doing it, and I'm like, I'm thrilled for them, but I'm also homicidal. Like, I just don't see it as part of my life right now. I can't enjoy like the other is enjoying. And so right now, I think we're still reeling in a kind of what I'll call an immediacy, in which maybe even the will to not know it's just not even pronounced enough yet. But like, at what point is this disavowal is riding a bike after World War I? When does it become obvious in its absurdity? When do the empty signifiers announce themselves as empty? And like the stock market, for example, how the fuck is it rallying right now? Like, it's like, you're like, are you sure? Wait a minute. Are you sure?
Well,
Like,
it's a sign without a referent, it's like,
Well, it's almost as if the profit of a very small group of people actually doesn't impact everyone else.
yeah. Or you're like, it's like they're like, they just ballooned the motherfucker with federal relief, but like, just to keep the illusion going. But I mean, man, how long can we keep the corpse going? Right, the uncle.
Well, in a broader framing of what you're saying, like it's the corpse of the undead corpse of capitalism that we're all walking with right now.
The necrophilia of capitalism, man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, perhaps without beating a dead horse here, this might be a good point to wrap up our apocalyptic conversation here.
Yeah.
But any kind of final remarks, fellas?
Jake, go ahead.
No, I was just like, I'm currently obsessed with thinking about how I enjoy and why, and maybe I can encourage other people to do it too.
I was thoroughly
this
enjoying
is the big other here.
Thoroughly enjoying the Beach Boys earlier, so that's one thing.
I woke up.
Beach Boys.
I woke up last week and I played Pet Sounds, and I probably haven't had a better day since. Like, that was one of the better days of my last 6 months, because I chose to wake up to the Beach Boys.
I got this. I found this mix music on YouTube, Jake, of Pet Sounds, and it just makes the album pop. It's phenomenal. I'm
not gonna lie, the ones that are available on Spotify don't really.
They're not great. This one I'll send it to you after this. Some guy just remixed it, and it has depth, and like, it's bigger, and like, you hear all the intricacies of the music.
Phil Spector 69 at gmail.com remixed it.
He would have definitely made it worse, but we don't have to get into trashing Phil Spector can be a topic for another podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, just before we end, wanna say thank you to our special patrons. You all know who you are. We love each and every one of you. We especially our parents. But hey mom, if you're listening, no. And we are on all social media except Facebook. The Facebook group got taken down because I guess they thought it was a fake account. So maybe I'll restart that soon. And we got Twitter,
no,
Patreon.
It's because we were too radical for Facebook. We're too real.
Yeah, I guess I maybe should have done my QAnon stuff elsewhere, but
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about how COVID is 5G, but maybe another time.
Welcome to 5G. You know, it's fucking, you know, like, I'm just, if my mom and dad are listening, why the hell aren't you our patrons yet?
Come on.
You know what I mean?
Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
On,
bravo.
Mike.
And how did you make it to the end of this episode? We actually, factually we know almost no one makes it to the end of this episode. So thank you for being one of the very few. And